Let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're looking at a pretty fascinating dynamic that happens inside companies running a negative price guarantee. Now, a lot of people think a negative price guarantee is just this external marketing weapon, right? Just a flashy way to test an offer in the market. But actually, it's a relentless internal mirror. It really tests whether your team can reveal a failure before the customer has to experience it. So it exposes not just your weak processes, but the actual people and the specific behaviors that allow those weak processes to survive in the first place. You see, you could literally find every single bottleneck in your business. You can audit all your systems, you can map out every flaw perfectly on a whiteboard. But if nobody can actually challenge that bottleneck, nothing changes. Identifying a missing protocol or some weak handoff between departments is completely useless if nobody on your team feels safe enough or responsible enough to just name it and fix it. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. A bottleneck without ownership is a future invoice. Companies generally don't fail because their problems are completely invisible to everyone. They usually fail because employees just aren't expected to take responsibility for those problems. In a normal business, passive compliance can stay hidden in the shadows for years, but that changes incredibly fast when seller-side accountability becomes a real thing. There is a really stark contrast between silent agreement and what we call quiet sabotage. A yes man might look super easy to manage at first glance. There's no conflict, no pushback, no uncomfortable questions to deal with, but that comfort is entirely fake. Passive agreement actually creates massive, incredibly expensive blind spots. It leads to untested assumptions, painfully slow decisions, and severely delayed escalation when things inevitably go wrong. Let's look at what this quiet internal sabotage actually sounds like in your daily operations. You've probably heard these. It sounds like someone agreeing in a meeting, saying, "Sounds good," and then absolutely nothing happens. Or, "We'll do it later," and the task simply pulls a magic vanishing act. It's the classic, not my responsibility, right when the customer's outcome is literally on fire. Or someone saying, "Let's keep it simple," which really just translates to, "Let's keep it vague, rushed, and completely unexamined." These aren't loud, dramatic failures. They are sabotage by inaction. And this really illustrates the danger. Notice how under a negative price standard, passive compliance is not harmless. It's actually highly expensive. Why? Because every internal excuse, every single delayed decision, and every missed handoff eventually reaches the customer. When you have a normal business model, you can quietly absorb the cost of a vague standard. But a negative price model, that brings immediate financial reality right to the surface. Which means, under -1, silence is not neutral. Silence becomes cost. A team that protects its own comfort over the operational truth is going to create some really expensive surprises. You are no longer insulated from the reality of your operations. So the enemy isn't just your competitors out there anymore. The enemy is internal inefficiency. Watch how quickly an internal excuse transforms directly into a customer claim. In a standard business, a poor handoff, a delayed decision, or vague ownership is just, an internal annoyance. But under seller-side consequences, those hidden operational weaknesses instantly become visible rework, refunds, financial penalties, and serious reputation loss. The economics just shift completely. Which brings us to a really foundational rule of this entire model. -1 turns excuses into invoices. Now, it's really vital to understand that the goal here isn't to create a culture of fear or to aggressively blame individuals for broken systems. Not at all. The objective is to force operational truth. Preventable failures must become visible early enough to actually correct them before the customer ever feels the impact. To survive this kind of pressure, a serious negative price business requires builders, not just seat holders. A seat holder is heavily focused on self-protection. They ask, "Is this safe for my role?" Or they say, "Yeah, that's not my responsibility." A builder, on the other hand, thinks in systems. They ask, "How do we stop this failure from reaching the customer? And who actually owns this?" Builders protect the system's capacity to deliver again tomorrow. But here is the ultimate constraint for any company. Listen to this. Your team is not ready for accountability if nobody can challenge the founder. If you're a founder who needs to always be right, or who subtly punishes disagreement, or makes it politically risky to speak up, your team will learn very quickly to simply nod, agree with you in meetings, and hide the actual problems. And so you end up with this exact contrast. A founder surrounded by agreement is a founder who's actually drowning in hidden problems and delayed escalation. But a founder receiving clear operating data, They value truth over comfort and speed over internal politics, making your operational reality discussable long before a formal process document even exists is what separates a fragile company from a truly resilient one. The founder sets the real escalation rule by how they handle bad news. So, you're probably wondering, how do you find the right people for this? Well, before you hire, promote, or trust someone with a critical handoff, you need a diagnostic tool. We call this the builder filter. And it's not some dramatic, high-pressure interrogation. It's just a practical moment to listen to the questions they naturally ask. Their questions are going to tell you if they are truly capable of making failure visible. These are the core builder filter questions. Listen for these in your next meeting. What breaks if demand doubles? What is the failure rate today? Who owns this metric? What is the standard? What is the escalation rule? And finally, what is the simplest fix we can ship this week? These are hard operational questions for sure, but they reveal everything about your team's true capacity, their level of accountability, and their ability to turn an insight into immediate action. The takeaway here is profound, and it requires a real shift in mindset. Do not judge loyalty by agreement. Judge usefulness by whether someone makes preventable failure harder to repeat. A truly serious culture has the operational courage to pair hard, uncomfortable questions with practical, systematic corrections. It's not about ego, and it's certainly not about public conflict. It's simply about protecting the outcome. Ultimately, your business faces a very clear choice between comfort culture and craftsmanship. Comfort culture avoids responsibility, it avoids friction, and it absolutely refuses to expose a weak process. Craftsmanship, however, is the absolute refusal to let preventable failure become normal. You either upgrade your culture to craftsmanship, or you just keep bleeding money through hidden weaknesses and customer claims. And what's really fascinating is how this standard affects the kind of talent you attract. Serious people do not fear clear standards. They fear environments where truth has no owner. High signal talent actually flocks to environments with seller-side consequences because it tells them, look, we can't hide. We measure reality and we fix what breaks. They value fair accountability and leaders who actually listen to the data. To make this work internally, you have to build the craftsmanship loop. It's a cycle. It starts with a standard that can actually be checked, that leads to ownership that can be explicitly named. When things go wrong, there is a clear escalation path that can be followed, resulting in a practical fix that can be shipped quickly. And then you just repeat. This is how reality constantly becomes a fix under a negative price model. This entire philosophy of proving the standard is publicly demonstrated in a project called NegBook. The core premise there is that well-being is impossible if you don't measure it. It's actually the first book in the world with a negative price, proving that a seller must be willing to be judged under clear conditions. You can learn a lot more about this at www.negbook.com. So before you ask whether your team is loyal, ask whether they can challenge the failure that will ultimately cost your customer. Here is your practical challenge for today. Find the hidden handoff in your business. Then apply for the negative price standard diagnostic to see where your ownership is unclear before you launch a pilot. The link is right in the description, negbook.com/negative price standard. I want to leave you with one final thought to cement the financial reality of internal inefficiency. Ask yourself, are your team's comfortable silences quietly bankrupting you? Remember, -1 turns excuses into invoices.